I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. And this video is how to make a bezel ring part 3. This will show you some soldering solutions for when that bezel ring starts to curve around and you start to get a little nervous about your torch placement. Check out the progress. Half a ring. So basically we're at the point now that if we try to solder it, like the last bezel was basically the last one that we could do because we did it at a little bit of an angle, you know, with the flame coming up, because basically this starts to get in the way. So once that starts to happen, then we just move over to using a third arm. We're going to use this to hold it. I'll have to fool around with this thing to get it held. But basically, you do this. You do this, and we're going to be doing kind of the same thing. We're going to be angling it.
It's the angle that's the hard part.
Exactly.
Why is that better than the...
Because this, you can adjust the angle of it. You know what I mean? Like that is just you lay it on there and that's it. Whereas this, I can take it and kind of like, you know, and I can kind of, you know, yeah, exactly. We can just fool around with it. We still have the same basic issue. You know what I mean? That yes, we can't hit this. But a lot of times what we do is we actually move over to a smaller tip and kind of angle it in from right here. So let's do one and I'll show you. So you have your next bezel, right here.
Next.
So I'm going to put it on there. And of course, though, you do have to make sure that this is at least enough to hold it so that your bezel won't just slide off. Angling is all well and good until you get your bezel on there and it slides off. Okay, so I'm going to put my, it's like 2 balls of solder in there, paste flux. So, you know, you want them as tight together. Hopefully the bases are touching or almost touching. Try to line this up nice and straight. Straight-ish. Straight is a very relative thing. Honestly, most of the time, what's more important is just that it looks straight, because straight is relative, right? What does straight mean? Straight means an angle is nothing. It's only straight if it's compared to something else. You know what I mean? So it's like, are you comparing it to the other bezel? Are you comparing it to the edges? You know what I mean? Et cetera, et cetera. So.
Did you draw a line down the center? Yeah.
Yes, there is. So in theory, that is the line that we're concerned about being straight. But I'm just saying the most important thing is that it looks straight relative to the other bezels. Okay. Not to get into deep philosophical issues or anything, but.
So she has oval bezels, so that's why it needs to be straight. Like it can be centered, but the oval can be off-centered if it's not. Yeah.
My first bezel ring was also ovals.
Nice.
Just to make things more interesting and difficult.
Yes, exactly. If we wanted life to be easy, we wouldn't make jewelry.
That's for sure.
Obviously.
Obviously.
So I'm going down to a smaller tip, but we're going to be in there closer. Because basically I have to avoid this. Yeah. So you usually end up doing something like this instead, so that you can be a little more local. Okay. And the thing of it is with the flame, you have to make sure you're actually hitting underneath the bezel and not just like shooting out like that, which is easy to inadvertently do.
Right.
So starting to get hot, and then you see that, it flows around.
Yep.
This is basically how we do it from now on. You just go at an angle, and you're in there just a little bit closer. As always, you still have to pay close attention, obviously, and get the hell out once the solder flows.
Yeah.
But basically, this just starts to be in your way, so we have to kind of do it like that.
Piece of solder.
There's a little solder scar
okay.
in there, yeah. Pickle it, and I don't think that's going to be in our way. If it is, we could always reflow a little bit more.
Okay.
Basically, my flame blew out right at the moment that I was getting it to reflow, so it got a little bit crusty. But if necessary, we can remove that. Okay. The most important thing is it filled around the outside.
Right.
But,
Okay.
okay.
All right. Thanks.
So, bezel ring progress. So you can see we're starting to get to the point now where we're getting toward the end. You know, we're getting toward the last couple of bezels. So what becomes difficult to get in here when you solder, because you know we're angling it from the side. Another thing that you can naughtily do is take it and go, just to kind of create a little bit of clearance for yourself so that we can get in there and solder better. We can also cut some of this off, you know, again to make it a little easier to heat. And in other words, we won't have that much more space to go. Do you know what I mean? We've only probably got maybe 2 more. And really with these rings, you reach a place where you either decide to add 1 more stone or not. So we kind of get there, we'll have you try it on, and we'll just make our calculations according to what we think will hopefully fit you the best. Okay? So I twisted this over to the side so we can get in here and heat a little bit better, and also just so that we can make our bend, because you can see at a certain point you won't be able to bend this thing. So what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna cut away some of this. So I have to kind of clear it over to the side there, you see what I mean? Hold it up against here and look at the bend, which is very hard to do when it's all twisted like this, but I think that angle looks basically correct. It's a lot easier when it's more open. The last part gets a little tricky. Okay. So I'm taking this bezel right here. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit, dip it in a little paste flux, put it in there, line it up just like we've been doing over and over again. Dry the flux a little bit, and we're going to take one more look at it and make sure that it's lined up properly. Quit it, you. You know, you always have to remember too, as you're working your way toward the end of this ring, the ring's getting bigger and bigger in the sense that you're adding more and more metal to it. So the last couple, sometimes it gets a little hard. We might move this up to a 1 tip again, because the last couple bezels is really not easy to get it hot enough. I'm just moving a little solder up against the edge there. Okay, let's take a quick look from the top. Take a look and see if you think that looks straight or if anything needs adjusting. I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to the big tip.
I think it looks straight.
Yeah? Okay, good. No. Oop, I got one, but thank you.
So you're putting a bigger tip back on?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is a little tricky, I'm not going to lie to you, because when we're done with this, we'll talk about Alexis had a learning experience with her bezel ring this week.
I like how you put that.
When you're done, can you come see?
It's all a learning experience.
Oh wow. Seems slightly underneath.
Yeah,
Like, just maybe like a quarter on top.
yeah. See that? The solder flows and everybody's happy. You just got to be careful. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think I'm going to supervise you the last couple of these because no, it's
Tough.
it's a little
to
stressful.
to get that right.
Yes, because you got to get the angle right where it's hitting underneath, you know, but not too close, but not too far away. You know what I mean?
You're a little more than half underneath. Is the way
So
it's
we'll
right.
do these last couple ones together.
But these are yours are round. Mine were.
Yeah.
So Alexis was working on her bezel ring this weekend, and she had what I like to call a learning experience. It's very tricky when you're soldering these things to concentrate on everything at once, in the sense that to get the heat underneath here enough to get it to flow and not inadvertently hit this, which is what happened here. So we got a little bit of melting on the end. Now, because it's the one on the very end, we're just going to chop that sucker off and just add another one to the other end. It's not ruined, it's just sort of melted down a bit. And I told Alexis privately that
it's on video.
I confessed, now it's on video, that if this were in the middle here, we would just roll with it, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
we would make it work. But since it's the last one and we can actually
cheat, right?
very easy, if you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough, we can just remove it, we will. If it were in the middle, man, we would just be living with it, you know what I mean? Now don't get me wrong, if something happened in the middle, in theory, that was bad enough, you could operate, remove it. I have done it.
Wow.
And put another one in. It's not something you decide to do lightly, if you know what I mean. But since it's the last one, we're just going to chop him off. But I mean, it happens. It's not easy when you're doing these things to pay attention to 12 things at once. It just isn't, you know what I mean? Because you're concentrating here.
And that's what I was worried about that first
Yeah.
time.
Now I've done a lot of these, so I'm very cautious about, you know, angling from the side and really looking. But the reason that I'm very cautious is because I've done this. Believe me, that's how I learn, and hopefully I tell you guys so it doesn't have to happen to you. But that's just one of the things you have to kind of pay attention to when you're working on these. Okay, so you're gonna pickle, you're gonna saw, you're gonna bend, and we're gonna do the last one together.
Okay.